Hi, I'm Robbie Bobby. In this video, we'll continue looking at ACA's official, unofficial steps. The ACA Fellowship refers to them as the Tony A steps. Tony A referred to them as the ACOA 12 Steps of Recovery. I refer to them as the Inner Child steps. Regardless of what you call them, they're designed to heal the emotional wounds of the inner child, because emotional wounds do not heal as easily as physical wounds. In fact, if they're not dealt with properly, they may never heal. And this is a problem because all 14 traits trace back to these wounds. The progression of the steps is to first admit we're powerless over the effects of living with alcoholism, and the effects are the 14 traits. The effects are the emotional wounds, and that these effects make our lives unmanageable. This is step 1. By step 5, we're facing our childhood abandonment, which includes all harm done to us as children, all of which result in emotional wounds. If we sustained physical wounds, they've likely healed a long time ago, but the emotional wounds that accompany them are probably still raw. That's because we didn't have the luxury of dealing with them at the time, nor did we have anyone to help us deal with them. This in itself creates its own emotional wound. So these unhealed wounds are what make our lives unmanageable today. And acting out on the traits prevents them from healing because the traits are a form of self-abandonment. It creates a vicious cycle that keeps us trapped. I think the biggest effect of growing up with alcoholism is that we learn to abandon ourselves. I always say, I'm not in ACA because my parents abandoned me. I'm in ACA because I abandoned myself. And the solution to this entire mess is to heal, which brings us to the next step. Step 6. We were entirely ready to begin the healing process with the aid of our higher power. By the time we reach this step, we've broken through any denial that our childhoods were normal or not that bad. We've also faced our childhood abandonment and realized the effect it has had on our lives. When you understand that your inner child has unhealed emotional wounds, you see the importance, the necessity of healing. The question then becomes, are you ready? Are you entirely ready? On a conscious level, you might be, but are you ready on an unconscious level? In other words, is your inner child ready? Does your inner child trust this healing process? You see, to heal, you must be willing to put down the traits. And for the inner child, this is scary because the traits are what kept him alive. And the child still believes that you're 5 years old. Being entirely ready cannot be forced. It's something that happens over time. However, I think that by the time you reach this step, you likely have enough willingness to proceed to the next. In fact, the following steps may be needed in order to make you entirely ready. Perhaps being entirely ready is an ideal that we never reach, but simply continue striving for. I think the key thing is to be honest with yourself, to admit to having some reservations or doubts about this healing process, but also to acknowledge the part of you that is entirely ready. Remember, we have multiple inner family members: inner child, inner teen, critical inner parent, inner loving parent, as well as our adult self. You may not all be on the same page, but you're all on the same journey, the same path. And you don't walk it alone. You have a higher power there to help you every step of the way. Remember, step 1 says we are powerless, but that implies we are powerless on our own. With the aid of a higher power, recovery and healing are possible. Higher power and healing power can almost be used interchangeably. I suppose you can let the initials HP stand for either one or both. With that said, if you're hesitant to move on, then you need to look into why. Resistance always has something to teach you. First, which part of the step is giving you trouble? Is it the first part, entirely ready to begin the healing process? If so, then maybe you need to spend more time with step 5, which looks at our childhood abandonment, or step 1, where we admit that our lives have become unmanageable. Or maybe you need to better understand how the traits show up in your life. If the second part of the step is an obstacle, then maybe you need to spend more time with step 2, which talks about trusting a higher power, or reflecting more on what it means to be powerless. An experienced sponsor or fellow traveler can help point these things out. They're more than just companions on the path. They also act as a guide or Sherpa. After spending some time contemplating this step and assuming you are ready enough, it's time to move on to the next. Step 7. We humbly asked our higher power to help us with our healing process. If we've done a proper step 6, then step 7 will not require any effort. The step points the way, and you simply follow. If there is significant resistance to asking, then work it out in step 6. If you were to ask without being ready or willing, then there's really no point in asking. By the way, step 6 and 7 are not done once, only to be forgotten. We need to do these 2 steps every day. This is what step 12 tells us when it says to continue practicing these principles in all of our affairs. So, I may have willingness today, but what about tomorrow or the next day? I can't rely on yesterday's willingness. We'll get more into that aspect of working the steps when we're on step 12, but for now, I wanted to point out that 6 and 7 are an ongoing process, not an event. Not something to check off your recovery to-do list. Humbly asking, in my mind, means knowing that I can't do this on my own. If I think I can do it on my own, I probably need to go back to step 1, admitting we're powerless. When I first came into program, I thought humbly asking meant speaking to higher power in a soft voice, not making any demands, and having a willingness to turn over the results of my asking. And while I still believe these things fall under the umbrella of humbly asking, when I was in Al-Anon, I felt I had some power over my character defects, and that my higher power would assist me in letting them go. However, when I came into ACA, I knew I was 100% powerless over my traits, and I realized that humbly asking was much more than my tone of voice or my expectations. It meant knowing I was completely powerless and in need of help. And this makes perfect sense because my traits are caused by unhealed emotional wounds, and only my higher power can heal these wounds. I can't heal them using my willpower. With that said, when you ask HP for help, it implies that you're ready to do your part as well. And that simply means doing the work. So this is the partnership. I do the work. I do the steps with the guide of my higher power and then trust that my higher power will heal my emotional wounds. This is the healing process, which can also be abbreviated as HP. We get to the heart of the healing process in steps 8 and 9. And that wraps up this video, which is meant to be food for thought. If you got something out of it, please click like and subscribe and forward to a fellow traveler. I'm Robbie Bobby. Thank you for listening, and as always, keep coming back.